Hey, now it's Dan Eberhardt here from Eberhardt Ag Solutions. Thanks so much for tuning into this recording of our Intelligent Data Makes Intelligent Decisions Makes Dollars webinar. Where it's an amazing overview of a bunch of different things that little brother's using on the farm, and the Suregrowth team, and Warren Bills. So if you want to be a part of the mailing list and get notifications about when we're having webinars and whatnot, you can sign up at agsolutions.ca. I just want to take a minute and share with you our Eberhardt family of companies, where you can find us online. You can check out eberhardtfarms.com to learn more about our farming operation in Saskatchewan, suregrowth.ca with good folks that we had on the panel today, to learn more about the precision agronomy consulting services that they offer there, convergencegrowth.com, which Warren Bills is a part of on the panel today. They accelerate solutions across food, health, and agriculture. Of course, eberhardtagsolutions.ca, we provide fertility solutions of the future to your farm. And last but not least, growing the future podcast.ca, where we talk to progressive folks that transform the agricultural industry. Also want to give a shout out to our folks, our good friends at AgVisor Pro, shrinking time and space to connect producers with answers. And today on this recording, you will hear from Suregrowth Solution experts, Terry Eberhardt, founder of Suregrowth Solutions, Tyler Leffley, agronomic advisor. Did say that right? Agronomic. Warren Bills as well, and Garrett Fraser, who is an agronomic advisor for Suregrowth. So they're going to talk about precision AI, spraying, green on green, eliminating weeds through drone technology and artificial intelligence. Intelinair, which is a company that collects data by flying drones to spot problem areas in your fields to address at a very early stage to make money doing that, and some yield and profit analysis, and the value of tracking data. It's just sort of a mind-blowing overview of everything that they got going on, whether it's in the agronomic company or at the farm level, and implementing those things. So should open your mind to what's happening with technology. We had lots of great discussion and questions. So I hope you enjoy the presentation, and we'll see you in the future talking about more topics.
Optimizing innovation and just do the stuff that matters for you on your farm. And we do this through a bit of a 10-step process that we work with our growers and bringing these solutions to the farm. Today, we're going to talk a little bit about just intelligent data. Of course, for years, we heard all the ravings about big data and how it's going to change the world. But I think most of us are pretty sick of big data. We probably feel a little bit like this as farmers when we think about managing data sometimes. But the reality is there's some great opportunities. And even something as simple as this. This is kind of the new advanced weather stations that we're going to be working with from Crop Intelligence this year. They are very reliable and very economical. So you can talk to us a little bit later about that if you have some interest. But that being said, yeah, even in drier years or poor years, good precision agriculture and agronomy can provide additional profits. And in today's world, let's face it, inputs have increased like crazy. We're looking at some of the highest grain prices we have ever seen. Supply may be an issue of certain things. So now more than ever, the value and the opportunity of making more dollars by making better decisions using data is just, it's bigger than it's ever been. And our dad, Harvey, would so intelligently say, when he grew up on the farm in his early years, it was kind of he who plowed the longest or worked the hardest that got ahead. But in today's world, it's the farmer that farms the smartest. And we're just going to talk about how to leverage a bit of data and a lot of broad topics here we're going to discuss. But I'm a big data junkie. Lots of data junkies on the call, I can see, and just having all kinds of data over time and on the farm can provide a lot of value. Let's face it, as farmers, a lot of times we're making decisions kind of by the gut, by the feel. But in today's world, we can make those decisions with data and with a lot more accuracy. And a lot of times when we drive back down to the data, it is a different decision that we would have maybe made by our gut. And I'm going to use some examples of that. Yield data, I've always said, is kind of the report card for your farm. And this is something that, yeah, there's a lot of frustrations working with yield data, collecting it, organizing and cleaning it. But as we continue to move forward, I think this concept of having kind of that geek squad of agriculture, having that assistance around the technology and helping manage these things is becoming more and more apparent. As we've seen in the industry with colleges like Olds College has started the Techgronomy course, which is a blend of agronomic knowledge and GIS and data. And so we've been had the pleasure of working with Garrett Fraser, who's on the call with us today, and going to be joining our team as our data geek of agriculture and working with some of our yield data and programs in our Intelinair programs. But this simply is just an example of, taking that yield data, turning it into a profit map, starting to understand, where those areas of the field are actually making you money or not. And when we've looked at some of this in our farm, I always like to use this example where we recognize in this particular example, there's definitely areas of our fields and farm that were losing us money. So when we did a 5-year analysis of yield on this particular example in the red areas, we looked at after we put in all of the costs of seed, fertilizer, chemical, rent, and equipment, these red areas were actually yielding so low that we were losing on average $70 an acre. So simply by taking that out of production and putting it into hay or something else, we are actually able to improve the margin, work less, make more, have a lot less risk and stress. And these are the kind of things that we want to help our farmers work towards and just really simplify life. And a lot of times there's a lot of simple things that get overlooked when we start thinking about precision agriculture. And hey, we know this is a little bit what the world is starting to look like out there as we get into spring. But this is a lot of what a lot of the prairies will look like. And there is a lot of variability there. Les Hendry was collecting data probably before I was born and showing us that there's some variability and things to manage. And today, again, in today's world, when we're looking at $1 a pound plus for nitrogen and phosphate and all these things, managing this is just a huge advantage. And especially with farms coming out of dry conditions, we've never seen the variability that we've seen in soil testing and that kind of data that we are seeing this year. And of course, leveraging that into precision programs, whether you're working with a lot of zones or not, or just something really simple to reduce those risks in the low areas, is something that we can think about. And this is a lot of work that we've done in the past. Is just Dan always talks about, the 80-20 rule. What's the 20% that we can do to get 80% of the value? So we always know there's more to manage and figure out when it comes to precision, but a lot of times we can just look at, hey, what's that first 20% that we can do that's going to have 80% of the value? And that might just be managing that poor zone. We've done a lot of work in the past once we've had that yield data, looking at different zone methods, whether it may be EC or satellite or mini zones versus less zones, and doing some analysis here to figure out, how does these zones line up for yield? Is there some similarities? In this field here, we probably looks like there's about 4 zones. This zone here, was 5 zones, but maybe a 3-zone approach is good by the data that we're looking at here. So just using this data to make better decisions. This is another great example from a little while ago already, but just looking at the yield disparity across those zones in the field when we first started doing variable rate. And then how does that change over time? So things change, nothing stays static. And what we found is by, managing fields with variable rate programs over time, sometimes we reduce some of that variability because we've started to manage it, and then we can go in with a simpler approach in the future. Here's some examples, just again, great example of, in my mind, using data to make a better decision, where we did very high rate nitrogen trials along with plant growth regulators. But normally, again, going back to that gut feeling, a lot of farmers would probably think that if you want to crank up the yield, just add a lot more nitrogen. But in this case, we've seen as we increase nitrogen, we actually put the crop out of balance. We created more lodging and disease. This trial was actually sprayed twice with fungicide to manage that disease to the highest level, but we actually reduced yield as we increased fertilizer. And the variable rate approach in this case was an average of 88 pounds of nitrogen versus, half of the nitrogen versus the highest rate and a higher yield. So those are the kind of things that we want to make sure we're making better decisions with. Most recently, with the crop intelligence program, we've been doing a lot of work with split rate of nitrogen and nutrients as we push higher for higher yields. It's more and more fertilizer going down at that time of seeding, more risk getting put out at the front of the season when we don't know what everything's going to look like. And so we've been split applying a lot of basically all of our farm in the last few years. And this is an example from last year where we had actually 2 years ago where we had higher increase in yield and protein with the split application, and even taking in the cost of that. There's some significant value there. And this is using, the metrics and economics of 2020 versus where we're at today. And so, again, as we move forward with where we're at in the world today and the prices that we're looking at, all these different layers of data and decisions can just put more money in your pocket, and that margin is getting higher. So, just to touch on a couple other things that we've been working with and some data tools that I think is really cool. What we're starting to see was at the World Ag Tech conference last week, and the food tech, some really interesting things going on there. We are seeing more and more data-driven tools, intelligence-driven tools, and AI really coming into agriculture. Warren's going to talk a little bit about precision AI and what is going on there with the weed management and the AI there, and this Intelinair program that we're working with as well, just helping direct your time and energy in the field and where you're going. And so also we're going to start to see, new advancements in soil testing. This hasn't been really common yet across the prairies, but there's going to be different opportunities and different tools to get data in real time, and this still has a little bit of work to do. Dan and I were at the AgTech Accelerator event in Regina a couple of weeks ago, and Chrysler Labs was there, and talking with Small Robot and Intelliculture, and just a lot of amazing things going on in Canada and Saskatchewan in the world of ag tech these days, and that's exciting to see. Exciting to see the representation down at the conference in San Francisco last week from Saskatchewan. So that was pretty cool. So one of the things that we are working with, and I have quite a bit of interest in, is this Intelinair Ag MRI program. And this is essentially, using satellite data or high resolution data of your field to help point you where you need to go. And so this may seem very similar to what's out there in the market. I mean, we have imagery through Trimble and Farmers Business Network and Farmers Edge and Climate View and Granular and all these different kind of things. But I think as we move forward, what we're going to see more and more is these programs and software that's really specifically designed to do one thing really well, or a certain area of unique ability. And Intelinair has really focused on bringing in AI and intelligence into monitoring your fields and help to give you pinpointed alerts so that you're not flipping through a bunch of images on every field and going through a whole bunch of data that's probably exhausting and boring to most of us, but helping us monitor what's going on in the field giving us these areas of alerts, and showing us which fields on the farm are important to look at. So as our farms get bigger and we get busier with everything that we need to do, we know labor continues to be a big issue on the farm and time. So, do we want to go out there and have to drive in a W pattern across every field to find out what's going on and make sure we're not missing everything, especially when you got $20-$25 potential canola going out there, growing out in the field? We're going to want to keep a pretty close eye on that. But yeah, I see there's a real unique opportunity with what they've been building. Ag MRI, or an Intelinair company, has been around for about 7 years now in the States. They did about 4 million acres last year in the US and are going to be doing about 8 million acres this year. Last year, we worked with about 50,000 acres of this product for the first introduction into Canada, and we're going to be working on about 100,000 acres as our target this year, and we're just about got that bucket full. So we're kind of looking to continue leveraging this and see how it goes. And so what they are offering through this program is 50-meter resolution from a satellite. So this is about 3 times higher resolution than Planet or some of the other higher resolution satellite options that are out there. We get captures, about 8 to 10 captures throughout the season. They're delivered within 48 hours. And so these images are taken all through the season. And then we will have the opportunity to create these weed alert maps and emergence maps, crop health maps, and then harvest and dry down maps in the fall. And lots of opportunity to create different prescriptions throughout the season, whether it be fungicide or top up of nitrogen, and or desiccation in the fall on your peas or lentils or things like that. And so what this program will do will help create a dashboard where it'll show you which fields are of concern, what area of the fields you may need to look at. So if there's weeds coming up or weeds regrowing, if there's emergence issues, if you got some bugs or other things causing some emergence issues, or how the crop is growing, the plant health and yield alerts. So anything that's maybe causing that crop to go backwards, and where in the field that you need to look, and then also dry down and harvest alerts. So I think as we move forward, this is a very interesting program, really interesting company that's been doing some cool stuff, and we've been following them for a while. They've been really great to work with. And Garrett is going to be working with this program this year with our clients and those in the industry that are interested in this. And he's going to chat a little bit about that later. And these are just some of the examples of a couple quick examples that, I thought was really interesting last year. This is a field where we sprayed most of the field with glyphosate in the fall, which is usually kind of a standard practice and what we normally feel gets the best result for your weed control. And we left this little strip on the one side because we had a precision AI plot there. And then we went and sprayed it in the spring. And when the weed alert maps, so on this side here, you can see the green areas are actually where the weed alerts were coming. And this is a bit of foxtail barley and things like that. And we actually can see where we had the spring application, we had better control. And so this is just kind of one interesting example there. And another one here on peas with the yield risk was acetamiphyses coming in peas. So this was all seeded as a block, but this one half had peas on it about 7 or 8 years ago, which I thought was a long enough rotation, but we definitely could see that had come in much more in that area that had peas even a while ago. The field up to the north here, this quarter of the north hadn't had any peas on it at all in its lifetime. So some differences that we picked up there that were kind of interesting. And Warren's going to be talking about precision AI and what they're doing. It's been really cool to be a part of this project and working with Warren and the guys at Precision AI and learning more about leveraging that for what we do on the farm. And I think things are really going to change in the future here with a lot of different companies working on the green on green and with weed resistance and all the different things that we need to manage there. I think we're going to need a little bit of AI support and better data to make better decisions there. And Warren will be talking about that a little bit more in his presentation. And another thing I wanted just to touch on lastly on the different data points, and this is not something that we're involved in by any means, but just another great example of having the right data and the right people to help you with the data. We are very blessed in Western Canada to have all the different public and private insurance options that we have. And I know for those that are working with consultants, whether it be through M&P or other private consultants, when we're looking at the ability to take all this crop insurance data, we can stack on agri-stability and these private insurance programs like Global Ag Risk or Just Solutions. And this is fairly, can be kind of a bit of a lot of information to work through. So on your own, you may not understand all the different benefits that could be created here. But again, for those that are working with the consultants and their calculators, there is farms out there today that are able to insure themselves for almost no downside, or even in some cases insure themselves for a profit, with where crop insurance coverage may be at. And if you have decent agri-stability margins and you understand how to put all this data together and get a good recommendation on what that could look like, it's just, again, another area where for those that don't have that data, are not working with the right people to understand this, they may be missing out on an amazing opportunity. And so this is, again, not an area that we work with within Suregrowth, but just ourselves on the farm, working through Maverick Ag and M&P to look at these different things. There's some great opportunities for farms out there, and just something that you should consider. And we're going to see also more of these type of programs, parametric insurance programs, where you can buy insurance for heat blasts on your canola. This program is out and running now in Canada, but whether it be heat blasts is what's available right now, but in the future you're going to be able to buy insurance for heavy rainfall or frost or any kind of peril or weather event that may be really specific, but will help you cover your risk. And again, there's going to need to be some data and analysis in order to make the best decision there. So I just want to give a little shout out to my buddy Rob and the guys at AgVisor Pro. They've been representing at the Ag Tech event there, Accelerator in Saskatchewan, and down at San Francisco. And it's kind of cool to see where they're going. They got a big vision of pulling all the experts and the data together moving forward. And with that kind of ends my spiel. I'm going to hand it over to Warren.
Fantastic. Thank you, Terry. Thanks, Dan, and everyone here for the opportunity to be on. I'm looking through the panelists or the participants as well, and some familiar faces there. So good morning. I will share screen successfully too. Here is the plan.
Warren, can I just hijack your presentation for one moment to get a question in here? Because I want to encourage some more questions. So let's keep this interactive. From Jason Castleman, thanks so much. Brian and Darren Hefty from Ag PhD talk about comparing yields to specific soil sample locations and getting some really interesting information about nutrient ratios and yield. Is anyone looking at that in Western Canada? So let's see who wants to take that one on.
Yeah, I can make a quick comment there, and then maybe Tyler's got something to add. But we did some of that way years ago on the farm here. We did a bunch of grid sampling and sector sampling, and we ran some analysis to yield. And it was really interesting which ones had the highest correlations and not. And one of the things that we actually saw had the highest correlation to yield in that data here on our farm was K to MG ratios, which is really interesting. But that definitely is something that can be done, and those are the kind of things that we want to look at and look at what nutrients or what soil attributes actually have the biggest influence on yield, whether it's slope or topography or pH or whatever it may be.
From Joe Dales, our good friend Joe Dales. Good morning. Or sorry, Tyler, you wanted to jump in there too. You had a comment? Go ahead.
Yeah, well, it's more of like, it's just kind of an oversight of it, I guess. It's definitely not going to be the same for every farm. With when we look at KDMG, so I think it's something I think every farm can do. But of course, it's getting your yield data is probably the biggest disconnect out there. So it's just a matter of being able to correlate those two different layers, which is being a bit of a challenge when you look at ag technology as an overall sector. So yeah, it's something that can definitely be looked at, but I'm not aware of anybody in Western Canada that is currently looking at it on a much wider scale than just Terry and his farm.
Interesting. Thank you, Tyler, from our good friend Joe Dales. Great presentation, Terry. Thanks for the sharing. What is the cost of the Intelinair program per acre? And I guess furthermore, do we know anything about the ROI or circumstances where it's helped you save a bundle of money, Terry?
Yeah, so what we're looking at with this year is we're going to be moving this program out at $3.50 to $3 an acre, depending on kind of volume and what we're doing. And with that, that's going to come along with Garrett's kind of season-long kind of support and oversight. So what we want to make sure is that we're kind of training and coaching and working with your team and the farmer to get the value and watching as these alerts come in. And what we've seen on the farm last year is it'll depend a little bit on your season and if you're doing fungicide and these different things, but we can use that, data to create different RXs. And there was lots of value, not only in what was going on in the season. We, and Garrett will share some of those examples or talk about that a little bit, but lots of opportunity to save some money and or to protect your crop. And again, when things are looking what they're worth these days, and with everything else that we need to manage on the farm, making sure we keep an eye on what's going on out there is pretty important. So,
and is there still room available in that program?
There is. There's still a little bit of room available that hopefully will be filled up very soon. So,
okay. Perfect. All right. Well, let's over to Warren Bills. Thank you for being patient there. We just wanted to touch on a few things, and I really encourage more interaction from the audience. It really makes it lively. So thanks everyone that participated. I know I have a million questions about Terry's presentation, but
awesome. I was hoping to see the picture of all the robots that are taking over Aberhart Farms that you mentioned, but I didn't get that. Maybe at the end. So
I'll Google something here.
Yeah, I love the questions coming in. I'm going to take us to a slightly different level of thought today. There's a few words that Terry was using that I'm not going to be using, and you'll find out why in a little bit here. But my name is Warren Bills. I'm located just outside of Calgary, Alberta. I've been in the agriculture, ag tech industry for quite some time, spent time in the field, spent time in different amazing organizations. And today I represent the marketing and commercialization efforts of Precision AI. And we're really excited to bring things to you. I like to start off with just this idea that why are we here? Why are we all here? And what are we all doing? Well, we're all contributing to the production of food. And I think we're at this point where the way we have produced food for the last a couple hundred years is going to be a lot different than the way we need to produce food for the next couple hundred years. And so we're at this point where there's a lot of trends, whether it's climate or COVID or supply chain or just economics, that the way that food production is thought of is going to be different. And Precision AI is part of that. I'll introduce our company in a bit. The idea that this is going to be your world in the next 3 weeks in Canada, where you've got emerging wheat plants, maybe in some parts you're already seeing your winter wheat come out of the ground, but there's over 1 million little wheat plants in an acre of a field, over 1 million wheat plants. It's 160 million little plants in a quarter section of land. And so just imagine for a minute what that means, and imagine for a minute how we've been making decisions on farms and on fields. And when it comes to spraying, this is also what we've been doing. When it comes to spraying and protecting our crops, they need protection. There's no doubt they need protection from weeds, from diseases, from insects. But this method of crop protection is somewhat driven by logistics and timing and the need to cover many acres in a short period of time. But just imagine for a minute if we could stop doing this, where if you're noticing, hopefully the video is coming through. Sometimes on Zoom it's a little bit lag, but as you can see in this video, we're spraying up to 80% of our herbicide chemical on bare soil, up to 80% on bare soil. So with the exception of the residual chemistries and those that actually need to be applied to bare soil, there's a lot of waste across a field and a lot of waste across a farm. And the cost of crop inputs, which don't seem to be going down, can represent up to 30% of your input cost to put a crop in every year. So this is a problem. This is a big problem. When I look at the industry that I've been blessed to be a part of, I see huge efficiency and gain on fertilizer technology, whether it's slow release methods or biosol products or variable rate applications of nutrition. We've done an excellent job at fertilizer. When it comes to seed, genetics, seed placement, 1,000 seed weight kind of calculation, we've done a great job at seed. But what are we doing when it comes to chemical efficiency and chemical improvement? And so Precision AI is not at this level. And so the words that Terry was using in examples, which are still very relevant, don't get me wrong, zones and zones and zones, a word that was really in my vocabulary for many years, is going to be changed. And so I asked the question, what would have to be true to farm at a per plant level? Think about that, at 1 million plants, what would have to be true? Well, the first thing I believe is a crazy ambitious team and group of people that want to embark on this mission, and that's Precision AI. We are on a flight plan to feed humankind. We're accelerating artificial intelligence-based farming practices to create a healthier, more profitable farms. And you can see some elements of automation and robotic dogs and swarms of drones on a future farm that isn't that far away. And this is the team. This is the people that are in Precision AI. I'd like to introduce the company to those of you that don't know who we are. We are solving the overuse of chemical pesticide in agriculture by combining artificial intelligence and drones to provide a transformational new approach to crop protection that achieves the same outcomes with up to 95% less chemical use. We also solve weed resistance problems by applying direct plant level application of herbicide using industry shaping computer vision and AI detection from the air. And wouldn't you know it, we're based in Regina, Saskatchewan, a Canadian company founded 4 or 5 short years ago with a diverse team now of over 50 people. So if you haven't heard of Precision AI, you will, and I promise you'll see more of us. Rapidly growing. If you're looking for a job, please check out our job postings. We've got lots of postings pretty much every month. So where are we at with things? This is a survey that we were on Aberhart Farms last year. You can see here we've got this is just the survey system. We've got a highly specialized payload, flying fields. I'm going to show that again. Flying fields at 70 kilometers an hour. This video is actually just the start of that flight, and recording in real time weed versus crop detection at plant level. And so with that, we're able to onboard at plant level capture down to the sub-millimeter level of accuracy. And then through a processing of algorithm, we can tell what is crop and what is weed. And we turn that into a very lightweight weed map that is identified where the weed pressures are at a really highly accurate GPS targeting level. So again, high speed, high accurate detection using drones across a field. We have the crop model onboard the drone. When the drone lands, that information gets produced in a format of a targeted weed map, which can be loaded into sprayers, and in our vision actually will be loaded into our drone sprayers for precision application from the air. Here's a little better video. This shows the speed as well. So we've got, of course, that ambition to target early stage applications of herbicides. Green on brown and green on green are some new terms in the industry now. Green on brown represents those detections pre-seed, and then green on green is post-emergent, so weeds and crop. So this drone is currently flying around 70 kilometers an hour. We're able to cover about 4 acres every 20 minutes. So through rapid recharging, not so much recharging, but we do the battery swap, send it back out, and then soon enough the swarming approach, the actual efficiency for broadacre crops is going to be there. It's going to be there before we know it. So then that information gets produced into a weed map, high accurate weed map. If you're equipped with some of the nozzle technology and the PWM technology on your sprayers, this can be used to see and spray, seed and spray, really. So we're really supported in this industry by alternative methods. John Deere is doing a great job at lifting up see and spray through their technology on board. We've got other great startups, Green Eye and Bilberry, and there's solutions from Raven even, but we're playing a role in this to really transform crop protection. So savings is one of the attractive pieces here. This is just a rough estimate based on some information that we gained from some of our farmers, that what would it look like for an average 2,500 acre Canadian farm with a cereal canola kind of pulse rotation. And those are based on chemical cost savings of 50% across those crops. So if we, again, through our solution, we've got a green on brown detection and then green on green detection. And if we looked into a post-harvest application as well, where you do a green on brown, things start adding up. And this is on actually costs that were collected last summer. So I would expect there's some things that have increased. So what does this mean for the future of farming? Clearly, there's a growth challenge in weed resistance. Terry lent me this map. I think it's a fantastic representation of where the number of challenges of weed resistance is growing, and our, we're not too far from our friends in the US, and we know that these issues are coming towards our country. But even in our country, we've got weed resistance. And so by having to make different herbicide choices, we may be forced into spending more on herbicides across a whole field that maybe we don't need to if we can get down to plant level application. And so the idea with precision AI, it's a different approach than your imaging and NDVI and zoning. It's really plant level, where we could actually pull out resistant phenotypes of species and control those with a specific chemical. just some other charts and graphs showing that it's not just, single types of resistance for modes of action. There's different modes of action on herbicides that we're seeing as well that are getting layered on. And this is 2014 data. So I can't imagine what it is 8 years newer, but again, I'm sure that graph has increased in terms of Canada. So Canada fleabane, wild oats, there's likely weeds that are resistant. So the annual overspend on chemical, for a typical farm, we're estimating around 57,000, domestically over $12 billion and globally, easily over $34 billion of overspend. And that's a problem that we're out to do. And the other thing is this future of doing more with less. If you're running into issues with supply chain challenges and getting chemical on your farm, I don't think there's any better solution than See and Spray solutions that are out there. This might be one of the easiest ways to use more of your herbicide, use less of your herbicide on more acres. And so these are all the trail winds. Now for the future of food, again, there's side benefits of doing this. Consumers are really demanding healthy ingredients. Commodities that contain trace chemicals are being rejected by grain buyers. So this is some, a familiar update from a company in Canada that was issued last season. And this trend is increasing, and it will create a problem for broadacre producers who rely on broadcast application. This is something we need to get ahead of. In addition, just to being able to access the market with our commodities, we expect that these will also pull a premium. And there's examples of this with companies like General Mills who are paying premiums for companies with lower trace chemical. And so more to come on this. This actually is part of an industry project that the team at Suregrowth, the team at Exceed Grade Marketing, and the Global Institute of Food Security and Precision AI are part of. We're in our second year of a $26 million project across precision agronomy, AI, grain testing, data traceability. It's just a fun project. So I'm going to wrap it up here, turn it over to Garrett, but would love to get your input. I will actually going to put a survey here in the chat for everybody. If you're into this kind of stuff, if you're into plant level farming, or if you're not, and you completely disagree that this is even possible from drones, would love to hear your input. That's the message. And so we've actually got a live spring survey out there. Basic questions, when making weed decisions, what's your main driver for making those decisions? And then would you consider using a solution that targets individual weeds? So we've had actually really good response and uptake on this survey. It's going to be live for a little more here, but would love to have your input, and feel free to let us know how you are doing, and follow us along. If you're not following us on our social platforms, please, Twitter, LinkedIn, Facebook, we're there, we're live. An amazing team of people, an amazing thing happening right in Western Canada. So Dan, Terry, thank you so much. Happy to open it up for a couple of questions here as well.
People have to have some questions. Thanks, Warren, for the update from Joe Dales. When are you ready for farmer testing and commercialization? Joe wants
Great question.
For 1,000.
Thanks, Joe. Yeah, get that question a lot. So we are actually doing field trials this season. They will be happening in the Midwest, US, and at Aberhart Farms in Saskatchewan. We won't be out east this season. I think from a expectation setting, 2023 would be the earliest we would pre-launch some of the weed detection survey components for herbicide application, Joe, to be fair.
What year, sorry?
2023.
Oh, 2023. Okay.
Yeah, from the survey standpoint. There's more to come. We're actually working on field trials with our spray drones as well this year. And so that's the second element where we're actually precision spraying from drones. Those won't be commercial in 2023. I can promise you that. But
it's finally happening, Warren. Like you and I were both sprayer specialists back in the John Deere days. Can you imagine now? It's for real. We live long enough. We're going to have robots in the sky, and it's a beautiful thing. Yeah. Auto farm, transform, and roll out. Garrett, are you going to give us a little presentation here? And if you could just for honoring everybody's time, trying to keep it an hour. If you could just give us a 5-minute overview, that'd be very much appreciated. Maybe we can take some more questions.
Thank you, Dan. Since we're running short on time, I'm just going to go over a couple of use cases we found with Intelinair. But I had the pleasure of doing a bunch of the R&D work last year with Suregrowth on the Intelinair project. So I had a lot of experience doing a lot of ground truthing with the app. So a lot of these examples were found by me while I was scouting. Just let me share. So one of the things that they're continuing this year with the Intelinair program is the weed insight or weed. So that's an early weed detection, early season. So last year, these are all basically 2 weeks after seeding, week after seeding maybe. And we're seeing that we're getting, based off the high level satellite imagery that comes with Intelinair, we are seeing that there's patches of weed showing up early. So these are all foxtail barley I found early in the year. And then this is also on a different field. We were finding wild oat patches super early in the season as well, mixed with some foxtail and some early season perennials. And also something very interesting we found last year with this high res satellite imagery is we were seeing a lot of flea beetle pressure early season at emergence, and especially on headlands. In this specific example, we saw a whole probably 60 acres of just where it should have been emerged. We saw a lot of damage, and the satellite was able to pick that up. And probably about a week later, there was a yield risk alert in the app already. And another flea beetle example where we're seeing it on the headlands. This was a pretty common thing, but these examples really stood out to us when we went and reviewed the imagery. And another yield risk. So last year we all faced drought across most of the prairies, and the app was really interesting to work with in that sense to detect the accuracy of the yield risks we were getting. So it did a very good job of picking up a low stand or plants that were drying down too early, weren't maturing, and it was already notifying us before we could even scout it. So we were finding these issues way before. And I guess that's kind of my quick and dirty. We're running short on time, but yeah, I just wanted to share a couple of those with you. I thought
Perfect. No, that's good. I mean, we want to see some real world examples. And I think people are always wondering, what can this physically do for me beyond just being, pie in the sky headlines that we keep getting bombarded with? Where does the rubber meet the road? How can we make money with it? How does it make my life easier? Yada, yada, yada. At this point, I don't know that we have any more questions, but from the panelists, is there anything else that you wanted to touch on before we close down? Or I'd ask the audience if they have any questions about the 20 mind-blowing things presented today. Please go ahead. But Terry, you're on mute.
There we go. Usually got to mute myself, but anyways, yeah, I was just going to mention, one of the things I'm really interested about in working with the Intelinair program too, as Garrett alluded to, and Warren, is, just finding these areas, identifying them more clearly, the wild oat patches, foxtail barley, the resistant weeds, the kochia. We're doing a lot more out there on the farm with residual chemicals, whether it's Edge or Avidex or things like Authority. These products usually are more expensive per acre, right? They're usually not required across the whole field, but right now we're spraying them generally across the whole field just because we don't have the data or tools to manage that better. And so, I think there's a lot of opportunity there. And just as mentioned, and with the question from Joe there, like Garrett's going to be working with us on this program this year. We've committed to kind of a block acres. We're kind of targeting about 100,000 acres this year with the program. And so we're getting pretty close to being full on that. There is a fair bit of interest. We're just trying to get it out into guys' hands to try it out a bit and see where this goes. But I think, this is something that's that's going to probably be able to tie in a little bit with the work that we're doing with precision AI and identifying, which fields might be the best opportunity for the drones to go and spray. And Warren's got that picture of our farm with the robots there in his presentation. It was nice to see what that to the website now. So
right on. Edgar Hammermeister had a question for Garrett, and I think this is really pertinent. Garrett, was the yield risk alert arriving soon enough to act on the flea beetle pressure? And it's funny, when you watch Clarkson's farm in Europe, they're not allowed to use it. And an old man there from Top Gear was absolutely flabbergasted that was so. But we still have some flea beetle tools left here. Were you able to circumvent disaster? Garrett Fraser, go.
We averted the disaster. It did show up a little later than we would have liked last year, but this was the first time Intelinair was in the Canadian market. So from a beta standpoint, we were able to divert it. There was some plant damage, but there was never any yield risk after that in that field. This year with Intelinair, we've been working with their lead agronomists so they can teach their algorithm to be more suited to Canadian crops. So that alert, they said, will be coming in quickly based off of the use cases we provided them from last year. So yeah, I'm looking forward to seeing that this summer.
I wonder how you edit it for Canadian values. Like, you got to say A, and you got to hold open the door, and you got to wait politely in line and let other people go on the double lane, right? Edgar Ham.
Yeah, just to touch on that too. Yeah, I mean, I think the ultimate goal of using this is to be able to catch those alerts in time. But, as Dan always loves when we talk about this as agronomists, it will partly depend on how quickly those bugs are acting and how quickly they come in. Bugs are always one of those things that, can change pretty dramatically even in a day or two. But the ultimate goal of using this is to help identify where those issues are and where to spend your time in the field when we've got all kinds of clients or all kinds of acres and fields to cover and you only have so much time. Do you want to be looking at the entire field or that 30 or 40% where actually something is going on in the farm and it needs your attention the most? So, we probably won't be able to catch everything in every scenario, but the idea and the concept is that it'll help alert us sooner. And from what we've seen in the work that we've done in the last year, and this is kind of where, the program's really gaining traction in the US is to help providing that early alert and guidance in most cases.
I'm really pleased to hear that you've upgraded your standard agronomic answer to everything from it depends to it partly depends. Because that's a huge, this was really big distinction. Thank you. Edgar Hammermeister, to Warren, can you comment on the scaling needed to manage a farm? You indicated 20 minutes to do 4 acres at 70 kmh. I anticipate you would do a swarm of drones. What do you see as a potential deployment to make timely information available?
Yeah, it's an awesome question, Edgar. Thank you. So there's a couple unique elements of our solution that are going to solve the scaling problem. The first is we're already actually testing and field testing an alternative power platform for the drones. So not just battery, it's a hybrid engine where you'd get up to 2 hours of flight time. So right there, we're 6x the duration and distance for that. So we go from 4 acres to 24 acres. And then the second thing you're bang on, it is around swarming and the opportunity to swarm. So although we have some limitations right now in Canada for regulatory swarming, there is precedent set in the agriculture regions of the US. Certain states have allowed up to 3 drones to be swarming at once. So it's just a multiple factor. So step number 1, we substitute in a more effective power unit for the drones to get longer flights. And then number 2, we just add more drones to the fleet. In terms of deployment, also a very great question. We actually really like your input, and you can put it in that survey as well. There's a question there, but a consideration around a permanent installation solution on a farm. So think of a box, a hive where drones live, and they essentially autonomously serve a certain radius of area. That may be as an effective a solution as, say, a service provider where you come out with a truck and the swarms go out. So I think we're still testing a little bit the the deployment methods that are going to make the most sense and economical sense, but more than likely not with a swarm of drones, something that a farm would necessarily invest in directly, probably via a service provider or a license of a hive installation on a field.
Also,
And
to
in terms
warn
of-
from Mitchell McPherson there, have you been
Yeah.
able to get flight permission in no-fly zones, for example, airports and city limits?
I don't know the exact answer, Mitchell. I'd have to talk to the engineers and pilots, but we most of our testing has not been done in highly urban, next to urban areas. So we're out in Langenberg, we're in remote areas. Those special flight operation certificates are definitely something that we look to have where we're flying. So.
Well, it's 10 a.m. here in Manitoba. I guess 9 o'clock in Saskatchewan for those of us who are behind Manitoba, if that's how we want to position it. But I really appreciate everybody that came on the webinar. It's great to see you virtually, and thank you for the questions and the interaction. I hope that all of these ideas and examples have demonstrated the use of technology in agriculture that we're all inexorably, like it or not, moving towards in the future, right? The future is happening, sort of whether we want it to or not. So working with experts like Suregrowth and all the people on this panel, who I'd like to thank very much for coming on and sharing their knowledge, is one way to solve that issue. Because personally, I don't know where I would start after today's presentation, except to call an expert and have them eliminate that so I can go on with my life. But that's just me, because I'm not that smart. So, but thank you, everybody. And we'll be having a lot of webinars in the future, diving deeper into these topics. If there's something specific you want us to delve into, let us know, but we'll continue to pick the brain of these experts. And man, I guess happy seeding. I mean, I'm not sure if we'll see you in this. Terry, are we going to have any ideas for upcoming webinars or dates or anything like that?
We have nothing nailed down at the moment. We're kind of going to be turning our sights to the farming season, which we're all very excited about, I'm sure. So
yeah, there's still that actually going and
Yeah.
seeding and stuff like that. So I'm sure everybody will be busy, but good luck out there and stay safe. Take care of yourselves. Be well, and appreciate your precious time here today and attention. And I hope it was of value. So thanks to all the panelists. Take care, everyone.
have a good day.